so I'm the, Brian and I work together. I schedule those and I work with Brian and I'm like, where can you get, like, how do we know where it goes out? And then if he can't get here in person, like, for instance, or like evidentiary hearings, I'll straighten him on this. But,
Oh, okay.
so,
Oh,
yeah,
awesome.
he's my tag team.
Well, nice to meet you in person because I get all your emails and we appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, she's been. But it's been. My mother-in-law. This is her right now.
Yeah, good.
I'll let you go. Yeah, no, that's. What is that?
Absolutely. Yeah, I really remember personally.
Morning, Judge. Scott Weitzel, Spire. How you guys are you? Witnesses or reason? Questions? Questions, okay. Yeah,
You're okay not answering.
I appreciate it, Judge.
Hopefully we haven't had too many more local public hearings. Oh, right. That we're gonna file the other late. Oh, that's.
Okay, everyone. We can go ahead and go on the record. Is the court reporter ready?
Yeah, I'm ready, Judge. Can you
Okay.
make sure to do a record of appearance or order of appearance?
What was that?
Can you just ask anybody making an appearance to give me their name?
Yep. I'll get to that in just shortly. So
Thank
we
you.
can go on the record. Good morning, everyone. If you have your cell phones on you, please silence those. This is the on-the-record presentation concerning the stipulation and agreement and commission case in the matter of Spire, Missouri Incorporated, doing business as Spire, as a request for authority to implement a general rate increase for natural gas service provided in the company's Missouri service areas, and that is case number GR 2025-0107. My name is Riley Fuel, and I'm the regulatory law judge presiding over this on-the-record presentation, and this is August 27th, 2025, in room 310 of the GOB in Jefferson City, Missouri. The current time is 9:31 a.m. Will counsel for the parties enter their appearances for the record, beginning with Spire?
Yes, good morning, Your Honor. Commissioners, Antonio Arias on behalf of Spire, Missouri, Inc. Business address is 700 Market Street, St. Louis, Missouri, 63101. Sitting next to me is Scott Weitzel, Vice President, External Affairs.
Thank you, counsel.
And Your Honor, Srinu Dundamudi with Spire, Missouri.
Thank you, counsel. And staff of the commission.
Scott Stacy for staff, and with me I have Michael Abbott and Curtis Gately and several other members of staff in case they have any questions.
Thank you. For the public counsel.
John Kleiser on behalf of the Office of Public Counsel. My contact information is found in the record. I will introduce witnesses as necessary.
Thank you. And any interveners, beginning with Consumers Counsel?
Yes, good morning. John B. Kaufman, appearing on behalf of the Consumers Council of Missouri.
Thank you. And for Midwest Energy Consumers Group?
Good morning, Tim Opitz for MECG.
Thank you. Missouri Industrial Energy Consumers Group?
Good morning. This is Diana Plusha on behalf of the Missouri Industrial Energy Consumers.
Thank you. And for the Missouri School Boards Association?
Yes, good morning. Terry Jarrett with Healy Law Offices on behalf of the Missouri School Boards Association.
Thank you. And I'd like to begin with some opening statements from counsel. Treat these openings regarding the stipulation and agreement, but understand that the commission may have questions at any time for the attorneys or witnesses. If there is a question for a witness, then I will swear that witness in. The stipulation and agreement is not confidential, but if any confidential information is introduced, I'm relying on the parties to inform me so that we can go in camera. Is there anything else from counsel or the bench before we begin with opening statements from Spire? Okay, Spire, if you can begin.
Yes, Your Honor, thank you. Just very briefly, Spire is very pleased to appear before the commission today to answer questions about the full and unanimous stipulation and agreement that was reached in our general rate case. We believe this agreement sets fair and reasonable rates based on our cost of service and is the product of nearly 8 months of discovery, multiple rounds of testimony, local public hearings, and negotiations among all the parties at various settlement conferences. We appreciate all the efforts of the parties have made ahead of, during, and after the 3-day settlement conference in July to reach this stipulation agreement. We believe everyone, again, just made significant efforts to get this stipulation agreed on and filed. Thank you. And we are available to answer any questions the commission might have.
Thank you. Any other opening statements from staff or any of the other parties?
None from staff, Judge.
Okay. If we want to begin with commission questions. Chair Hahn?
Thank you, Judge. I appreciate the parties coming in today for the on the record. My questions are actually fairly brief, and one is actually a comment. So I'll start with a question and then just go to the comment. There is a disparity between East and West. I was hoping someone could help explain that as to the purpose of the rate impact difference in those territories?
You want
You
to
may,
start?
yes.
You go ahead.
Good morning, Chair. This is Scott Weitzel of Spire. You might be referencing or looking at maybe the volumetric rates, that they could be 10 or 12 cents higher east versus west. A layer on top of this is the total bill impact of the customer. So for east, the increase will be about 10% or about $8.21 a month. For west, it's about 10.5% or $8.93. So it's only about 70 cents more on the west. And a main reason for that is the billing determinants. Usage is more on the east, it's less on the west. So even though the volumetric rates might look a little higher, the total bill impact is pretty comparable when you talk east for west, and that's only about 70 cents a month difference. Another item on top of that is that we've owned MGE for about 10 or 15 years now. The previous owner did have some underinvestment on that side of the state, and so we've been playing a little catch up, and that's why they're just a hair bit higher than the east side of the state.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, if I could, I'd add to that just as a brief point. You know, whenever we're doing one of these rate cases, we always try to describe to the principle of cost causation. We are trying to make sure that the costs stick to those who are actually causing the cost to be incurred. And in the particular case, when you have Spire East and West as two separate service areas, there's slightly different amounts in terms of the capital expenditures that have been made, as well as slight differences in the way that they're managed, which results in different costs just being created from each of the two sides, so that we keep them separate in order to honor that concept of cost causation and try and keep each side paying for just those costs related to serving them to the degree possible.
Mr. Weitzel, I should probably swear you in case any other questions are asked especially. Can you raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you give in this hearing will be the truth?
I do, Judge. Thank you.
Thank you.
Quick comment.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Kleiser. That answered my question, at least one of them. So thank you.
The only other thing that I was going to mention today is when I was reading the stipulation and agreement, it's fairly hard to track low-income programs, what's available, what's offered, how much is in each program. I know the commission is going to undertake, alongside OPC, a workshop to better understand low-income programs. I might suggest, not particularly for this stipulation and agreement, but I think it would be really helpful to have a list of your program offerings, their budgets, the administrative costs to run those, and annual expenditures, also how they're funded. So if there's a shareholder customer split, if you would just put that information together in anticipation of upcoming workshops, that would be really helpful. That's all I have. Thanks, Judge.
Thank you, Chair. And Commissioner Coleman, do you have any questions for the parties?
I do. Thank you. Thank you, Judge. Let me piggyback a little on the question that Chair Hahn just had about low income. Point 21 in the stipulation says that there is a $6 million cap on low income assistance. Can someone tell me how this compares with previous amounts?
So I'll go ahead and take that first one, and I might turn over this to my witness here, Dr. Jeff Mark, in which case he'll need to be sworn. But at a high level, what you're referring to is actually a very specific program. I do not believe that that's a cap for the entire low-income programs or other energy assistance programs that might be offered. Got to be a little bit careful here. Not every energy assistance program is specifically just low income. There's also medical needs, for example, which can affect people that may or may not be in that kind of bracket. So that $6 million is specific for just that offering, which is a new one being put forward as part of this case.
Is that the critical needs program?
No, that is a program that is designed to provide for individuals based on their income level. That is a specific new one here. And before I get out over my skis, I might just turn this over to Dr. Mark to make sure that I'm not needing to be corrected. So if you would swear him.
Dr. Mark, please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth?
I do.
Thank you. You may proceed.
Hi, Commissioner Coleman.
Good morning.
So the program is really a low income rate. So item number 21 is it's a bill reduction for qualified customers. So effectively they're waiving the customer charge. So it's a $22 break effectively for eligible customers. We don't have anything like this in place for any utility. So this is really a response to SB 4. And it's funded both 50-50 between ratepayers and shareholders. So it's unique. We're hoping, we're cautiously optimistic that this might be at least directionally in the right way of setting rates for low-income customers moving forward. The $6 million is a cap right now. If there's a number of reasons to expect some variety in terms of the actual participation levels of this program. If the numbers exceed that, my understanding is that parties will have a good sense of whether or not that number is being reached well ahead of time, and if need be, no doubt there'll be future negotiations and discussions as to what would happen if that level is about to be breached.
Thank you. Yeah, the critical needs program and the keeping warm program, how do they compare?
So the best way to think of this is think of it 3 different buckets. We've got a bucket for affordability, and that's this bucket right here, number 21. This is the low income assistance program. This is a bill discount. It's straightforward. We're providing a more affordable bill for certain customers. The second bucket is for what I would characterize as sustainability. And those are customers that have arrearages. Those are customers that are falling behind on their bills. The Keeping Warm program in part helps with that. It's also designed effectively to target customers as designed to keep their furnace on during the cold months. So it is really more of a sustainability program that also deals with arrearages. The third program, or third bucket, is what I would characterize as crisis. And that's the critical medical needs. That's in some cases, it's rehousing.
Work. Somebody's good on it work. But take plenty of candy. Take plenty of candy, because then
the critical medical needs program is really just immediate bill credits, and really more than that, it's the ability to delay disconnection for a time period until funds can be redirected to help those in that household.
All right, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to someone to discuss with me point 16 in the stipulation that indicates rate case expense will be recovered over a 2-year period. Will ratepayers be paying the company's expense, or will the company share those expenses? And do we have an estimate of how much those expenses will be?
So I'll take a first stab, and somebody else is free to jump in after that. Rate case expense is a component that gets put into every single rate case that we have here, more or less. And in general, it's part of the revenue requirement in this case. What's actually being spelled out here, which is the only reason it's being spelled out individually, is the time period over which that rate case is being, I'm going to get this wrong, is it being amortized or normalized in this case? Normalized. Yes, and accountants will tell you what the difference is. I don't know. So normally, we've usually used a 3-year period to normalize rate case expense, and that's because that's what the company, Spire in particular, had historically been operating on due to the ISRIS legislation. And then we are moving to a 2-year for reasons that I'm going to leave Spire kind of to explain the justification for moving to that 2-year. But that's just the time period over which that account will be drawn down on the company's books for accounting purposes. The actual dollar amount is already baked into the revenue requirement that is in this. So there's no additional dollars because it's all part of the black box. Does that make sense?
Don't mention black box around me.
Fair enough.
Good morning, Commissioner. This is Scott Weitzel, Spire. You know, we negotiated this, but I think if you want to kind of understand where all that landed, you could kind of look back at past cases. That was kind of a guide for us on the sharing program. But, you know, we didn't identify that, but I think you could anchor back to staff's testimony in previous cases, and that'll give you a good guide on how this was handled.
Okay, so you're telling me to go do the work, huh?
Again, Commissioner, these are a little dicey sometimes when we're talking about stipulations, but I'm just trying to give you a guide, and I could talk to your advisors as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so I've got a question about Appendix 1. In Appendix 1, why do the cast iron mains in Spire East have a depreciation rate of 19.5%, while cast iron mains in Spire West have a depreciation rate of 11.17%?
I told my depreciation expert he probably didn't need to come down, and I was wrong.
Well, maybe someone can get that answer while I ask some others, okay?
Yeah, give us just a second on that. Sorry.
Okay, no problem. It just goes to show how brilliant you are, Mr. Kleiser.
And
So,
I don't know if Shelley Ann Trainer's on for Spire, and maybe give a little color on that.
Yes, Shelley Ann Trainer from Spire here.
Shelley, did you hear the question?
Yes, I did. Can I go ahead and answer it without being sworn in?
That's up to the judge.
I'd like to swear you in first, if you can think of your
Okay.
answer. Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth?
Yes, I do.
Okay, you may proceed.
Those rates are different because of where we are in our program on each side of the state. I believe it was discussed earlier that the infrastructure replacement program, we are further ahead on the east side of the state, and we based off of the balances that we have left in those accounts, our depreciation expert determined that the rate should be higher on the east side of the state to recover those costs. On the west side, we have more time because there's not a cast iron definite replacement time frame that we're looking at. So there's a lower rate on that for cost recovery.
Okay. Okay, I think that answers it. Thank you, Ms. Ann Trainer. Appreciate
Thanks.
it. All right, I have some questions regarding the weather normalization rider. Can anyone explain why the weather normalization rider doesn't shift risk from the investors to the ratepayers?
Good morning, Commissioner Coleman. This is Scott Weitzel of Spire. The WNR tool is helpful in us having the opportunity to potentially earn our revenue requirement set in these rate proceedings. However, it's not a perfect tool. Last year, we were still in a deficit of around $7 million. This year, it's trending the same. And kind of because we're not even being able to hit our revenue requirement number, S&P downgraded us last year. So it's a useful tool, but there is still very much risk on the company and shareholders because it's not truing us up to a revenue requirement number. And we're not, in the past year or two, we're not even able to hit that, even having that nice tool. Another component of that is most jurisdictions have these types of riders, whether they're volume balancing adjustments, whether they're weather riders. And so when we see national ROEs, those, half or if not more of those jurisdictions have those types of tools in there, and that's how those ROEs are calculated.
So this is where things get kind of difficult because the pointed fact is that the OPC disagrees with Spire on a lot of this. And to answer your question from the OPC's perspective, yes, we do believe the WNER shifts risks from the company onto ratepayers. And we've filed testimony in this case that ultimately we're going to request that the commission reject the WNER. Now, obviously, we've made a tactical decision based on our consideration of the likelihood of success on all of the merits in the case, the risks exposed to taking this to hearing, and overall general resources available to us, and agreed to a settlement that allowed the WNR to continue. But the short version is that, we do believe that that is in fact the case. And I do want to just throw out, again, I'm not here to necessarily get into a debate with Mr. Weitzel, but in our opinion, the impact on the ROE from having a WNER is negligible compared to other factors. There may be some impact, but we don't believe it's nearly as egregious as what the company maintains it is. But that's the thing. Both parties are going to have a difference of opinion, and both parties are going to have, their prerogative is to state their opinion.
So, Mr. Kleiser, I know Lena Manto, when she was on the witness stand, talked about the WNAR. So are you feeling that, based on what you just said, that the majority, that there were a lot of things given up based on what we heard Ms. Mantle say and what you all agreed to in the stipulation?
I want to answer that, but I just want to make sure I understand when you say a lot of things given up. Can you help me? What exactly?
When you talk about, well, I guess my question is, was a corresponding adjustment to the rates made in the stipulations? That's some of the testimony that Lena Mantle talked about. Does that make sense?
If you would, as Ms. Mantle is joined behind me, I'd be happy to turn it over to her and let her try and answer that directly. Judge, if you would want to swear her.
Sure. Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the truth, the testimony you're about to give is the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. You may proceed.
Good morning, Commissioner Coleman.
Good morning.
As Mr. Kleiser has previously said, when we do go into settlement discussions, we have to weigh the various aspects of the different positions, and have since Spire currently had a WNAR, and looking at other inputs into the revenue requirement, it was our position that it was balanced out by other gives to the customers through the revenue requirement.
Okay.
Did that answer your question? I'm sorry.
Yeah. You said it was balanced out by other gifts, so that answers the question. And let's see who might be able to talk about this with me. During the hearings, often customers talked about the attempts they've made to make their homes more energy efficient, using better equipment, newer equipment, in an attempt for less gas usage. So explain how the weather normalization rider doesn't penalize ratepayers who are doing everything they can to lower their gas bills.
It does penalize them. I mean, that's one of the problems that we have with the WNAR, is a customer can go to great lengths to reduce their usage, and then, but their neighbors not. And their neighbors change, and their bills after that do not just reflect their own patterns of usage, but also the changes any that the other customers may or may not have made. So yes, it does penalize it. There is an equation in the tariff sheets, and my attorneys would tell me that not everybody understands those, but the change, it is not a one-to-one. There's, so the change is slight, and we just kind of balance that, knowing that those other customers do influence the customer who's changed their usage patterns. And again, it's a balance. Even without the WNAR, other customers influence rates. It's the diversity among those customers that really is important in setting rates, and that bias is always there, but it is increased some with a WNAR.
Okay.
Good morning, Commissioner. Scott Weitzel, Spire.
Good morning.
You know, another way that I sometimes look at it that, you know, might be different than the Office of Public Counsel is that the WNAR does not account for conservation. We've continued to see lower usage per our customers. And even with a WNAR rate, let's say it's 5 cents. If you put, we don't change the WNAR rate for, it's only an annual filing. So if you make energy efficiency improvements to your home and you're using 700 CCF and now you're using 680 CCF, your bill will go down. When you're using yes, you're paying less for the volumetric rate, you're paying less for the PGA rate, and you're paying less for the WNAR rate. So I think you would be able to see that if you made those improvements in your home.
Oh, how long would it take a person to start seeing that sort of improvement, though?
I would say as soon as those appliances, weatherization, are up and running and part of that family's home.
Okay, so that, Dr. Mark, let's get your comment in, and then I have another one for Mr. Weitzel.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. The payback's longer is the short answer. So if all things being equal, if you didn't have a WNAR and you made investments in your home, it would pay for itself in a much shorter time frame than if you have the WNAR. So another way of looking at this is that this is sort of a close cousin to a MIA surcharge. So whereas the MIA just looks at the energy efficiency investment, the WNAR is looking at the weather side of things. But they're accomplishing effectively the same thing, just in different manners. I don't know if that helps or makes things more complicated, but yeah.
Yeah, it does both, but
Okay.
thank you. So now I have a general question for Spire. I'm a Spire customer on the east side of the state, and I want to talk about what went on in July of 2022 when Spire put out a press release that warned of potential mass gas service outage during the winter. This was relative to the pipeline situation that was going on. You had dire warnings that you sent out in an email. The company was investigated by the commission at that time for what we felt were exaggerations and frightening customers. Because I am a Spire East customer, of course, not only was I affected by these comments, but I received a variety of phone calls from customers concerned. The news even reported that that stores in the St. Louis metropolitan area had sold out of electric heaters because of the attempt by Spire to really paint a dire picture. So I want to know, what have you done, the company done since that time to try to rebuild the trust and confidence that customers need?
Good morning, Commissioner. Scott Weitzel with Spire. Just since you brought up the past, I'll do a little history on it and then kind of address what we've done going forward. Spire, Missouri, the utility operator in the state, we made plans to diversify pipelines to the St. Louis area. During this time, we got caught in the middle. We got caught in the middle of FERC, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission and a lawsuit by an environmental group. And as those two were fighting it out, we were stuck in the middle. And as they were fighting it out, the FERC decided that, hey, we're going to stop operating this pipeline on this specific date. And that's real. In the middle of winter, us losing, half of our supply, that had us very, very concerned. We were contingency planning. We were looking at other options to serve the St. Louis area because that's the regulators of the interstate pipeline were shutting that down. We did send a couple communications to our customers. The staff investigated those comments, and then we sent out a third communication at the recommendation of staff working with them. And so there are some communications there. There was a concern. Luckily, the FERC saw that this was critical and vital diversity supply to the St. Louis area. So I'm glad that's behind us because losing half of your supply in the wintertime, that as a gas operator, our core function is safety and reliability. So glad that's behind us, and great question on how we're building that trust. And I think it's how we're showing up in the community. I think it's how we're trying to constantly improve our customer service. We're not perfect. And I appreciate the parties in this room keeping us honest and keeping us fresh where we're constantly trying to improve that process. And so I think that showed up a little bit in our local public hearings. Yes, there's people that are upset about increases. I understand that, but there were people that were critical of the increases, but were also positive about what we're doing in the community, their interactions with Spire. And so we're trying our best, Commissioner, to rebuild anything there. We're seeing some, it's getting warmer, but we're seeing these critical cold days pop up. And, gas is the most reliable fuel source out there. And even when we have these extremely cold days, people could be confident and comfortable of turning on their heat, turning on their fireplace or cooking, and that's our core value.
Mr. Weisel, you did a really good job of towing the company PR line, I think, in that answer you just gave me. So you're doing a good job that you're supposed to do as a Spire employee. But I don't want you to downplay how serious and how traumatic this situation was to customers in the St. Louis metropolitan area. There was actual fright. There was a lot of media coverage. And so I'm happy to see that the company understands the seriousness of this and has taken some steps. But I don't want Spire to forget that as far as many people are concerned, Spire initiated the campaign to scare people into reaching out to FERC and everybody else that they could about this issue to get support to make sure that pipeline didn't shut down. And I'm not sure and never felt sure that there was ever any real threat of the pipeline being shut down. So there's definitely been quite a feeling that the company overreacted in this. And my goal is hopefully that you all see that that wasn't the correct way to go about this. So I appreciate your answer. I appreciate the fact that you gave the answer that's appropriate. But I just want everybody to do better, okay?
Commissioner, absolutely. There are definitely lessons learned from that process and that past. engaging OPC staff, the commission, before something to that magnitude happens is something that we're going to improve on. And there has been lessons learned that we've had in Spire, Commissioner, so we will definitely do better.
Okay. Thank you, Judge. That's all the questions I have.
Thank you, Commissioner Coleman. Commissioner Kolkmeyer, do you have any questions or comments?
Yes, thank you, Judge. First of all, I want to give a shout out or a thank you to Commissioner Coleman for her questions that she asked. They were very good and very deep. I have some of those same concerns. I also want to thank all the parties that came together with all of the cases that are stacked on top of one another. No, we don't like, as commissioners, we don't like black box settlements. However, with all of the multiple cases stacked on top of one another, it stretches our staff, it stretches OPC. So that definitely helps out. I want to thank Mr. Kleiser again for the East and the West. Commissioner Coleman is an East customer. My family business is a West customer of Spire. So yes, this affects me and my family. I second Chair Hahn's request for the low income program that would Spire and help us, help OPC and our staff come together. When people find out I'm a commissioner, I have two things that people comment about. One is don't raise my rates, okay, and that's on all utilities, so that's not picking on any one. But the second line item, the second thing that pops up is, what are all of these charges on my bill? People have no idea what they're paying for. Line item after line item after line item. And this is I'm not picking on Spire here. I'm saying we as an industry and regulatory body need to come up with somehow, some way that we can communicate to the customers what they're paying for, because they don't have a clue. All these acronyms and everything else, we as commissioners have a hard enough time dealing with acronyms, let alone the public, and understand what they're all for. Paying for stuff that's bygone. Winter storms that are how many years old we're still paying for, and or paying for equipment that's not even in service yet. The public, they just don't understand. But this is the framework, and this is the rules that the legislature has given us, so it's the rules that we're playing under. I have some concern over the percentage. So there's been a 43.13% increase since the Spire's 2017 case. That concerns me a little bit. But I know inflation is here. I know we're dealing with it and what have you, although I think that's up there, just that. I don't know that I have any questions. Commissioner Coleman, she pretty well asked the questions that I was thinking on, so all I had was comments, so thank you, Judge.
Thank you, Commissioner Kolkmeyer. And Commissioner Mitchell, do you have any questions or comments?
Thank you, Judge, and I just wanted to thank the parties as well for their hard work on this, and I appreciate Commissioner Kolkmeyer's comment about the volume and caseload, and that is a fact that we live in. That's the world we live in today. But I want to make clear that staff and OPC and the parties are still doing their jobs. Even though the staff is stressed and strained at times, I think they're still doing an excellent job at what they do every day. So I want to thank you for that and commend you for doing that in this time where there is just a lot of catch up, and really a change in tempo in how we deal with the case. I'm also worried about the disparity between East and West, and I think the question was asked and I think mostly answered, but I think maybe in my mind a big part of the differential is also two differences in investment in those two districts, and I mean if I'm wrong about that, I'd like to be corrected or like to have a better understanding.
No, again, your understanding is correct. It's investment, and it's also a bit about the operations and maintenance costs. There's very minor different ways on how the two halves are operated. Those are historical legacy items. Spire can provide more detail if you want. I won't necessarily give it to you, but yeah. And again, I just want to make sure this is clear. Anytime you start violating that principle of cost causation, you are implicitly engaging in some kind of subsidization. If you have two different systems and they're being charged different amounts for the different level of service, and you say, well, we're going to charge a flat rate to both of them, one side is now going to be paying slightly more to serve the other side effectively. That is the give and take between that. Does that make sense?
Yes. Understand. And I think to Commissioner Kolkmeyer's point, the ratepayer, I think, has at times a hard time understanding the breakdown of the bill, and I think we need to do a better job in educating the ratepayers, the folks who are writing the check every month, as to exactly what it is that those acronyms mean and what they are for and the justification for them being there. So I really think we need to do a better job communicating that. And again, to Commissioner Kolkmeyer's point, I think that is not a dig at Spire. It's more of a global comment as to the way bills are structured and explained across all of our utilities. So I think we need to do a better job with that. My only question in all of this is the low income assistance program and the critical needs program and Keep Warm programs. I think you explained, Dr. Mark explained that the shareholders participate in the low income assistance program to a fairly large degree. I think you said a 50-50. My question is, in the other programs, do the shareholders have a stake in those as well?
I believe my direct testimony's got a breakdown of all the programs and the cost and the sharings with that. The Spire participates in the 50-50 sharing. I want to get this right. I believe across all bill assistance programs, however, the weatherization right now is not 50-50. So that's the one difference. Now, we raised weatherization a little bit in this case on, I want to say, the east side, just to make it even across both east and west, an equivalent amount. But Spire's got honestly a fairly robust low-income bill assistance programs, plural, and those are 50-50 across the board.
Yeah. Thank you, Commissioner. We've got about $10 million of energy assistance programs, and the shareholders pay for about $5.1 million, about 50% of those. And you are correct. Weatherization is a program we've had for over a decade, if not decades, and that is not a shareholder. Thank you. I have no other questions, Judge.
Thank you, Commissioner Mitchell. I have a couple of questions, just a few, more than a couple. The original request was for around $290 million. Can anyone tell me the percent this agreed upon amount is? Sorry, it's math, I know. But.
Your Honor, I think it comes out to just around 73%. It's like 72.6.
And then some of these other questions have to do with the continuing property records audit. The agreement, stipulation and agreement in case number GR 2022-0179 at paragraph 37 states that upon completion, the audit report shall be filed with Commission and EFIS. In the rebuttal testimony of Michelle Antrainer on page 2, she states that Spire, Missouri received and submitted to the parties the Grant Thornton CPR audit findings on February 27 of this year. Was that audit ever filed into EFIS?
I don't believe so, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, but we can file that in the last rate case docket or submit it as a non-case filing, just whatever's cleaner, but.
Yeah, Judge, I think we sent it to the parties as part of a data request, but we could get it on the record.
I'm also fairly confident it was attached as an exhibit to at least one, if not, I believe at least one staff witness and potentially one OPC witness. So if the commission takes the testimony under the record as was envisioned by the parties, it will be there as well.
Okay,
But we
I'll
would-
review it
Yep,
because.
thank you, Mr. Kleiser.
Yeah, thank you. I'll review it because I'll formalize admitting those exhibits as well. Thank you. I have one more, maybe two questions. Ms. Antrainer also indicated in her direct testimony that any plant adjustments required as a result of the Grant Thornton audit will be included in the true-up testimony, which ultimately wasn't filed as the procedural schedule was suspended. Were there any plant adjustments related to the Grant Thornton audit, included in the stipulated $4,379,000,000 in change total plant and service balances at May 31, 25, the end of the true-up period? So were there any plant adjustments included in that amount, the total plant?
I will let Shelley and Miss Antrainer correct me, but we did make plant retirements as part of that audit. Miss Antrainer can give you the specific equipment or materials that were retired.
Yes, there were, based off the Grant Thornton's recommendations, we did go through and do a reconciliation on our diaphragm meters, and there were retirements related to that.
Okay. And does that include the USOA? Sorry, that's too technical for me.
The USOA is accounting standards, so it would not impact the retirements. I do not understand the
Okay.
question in that text.
I'll rephrase the question. Would Spire agree to provide, with its direct filing in its next rate case, the plant balances by the USOA account number at May 31 of this year to reconcile with the stipulated total plant and service for Spire East and Spire West as of that date?
I'm sorry, Your Honor, what date was that?
May 31, 25.
Could you do that?
That's the true up date, I
Are
think.
you asking for the retirements, that for the retirements, or just for?
To reconcile with the stipulated total balance, total plant and service.
Could you just could you ask your question one more time just for us?
Sure.
Thank you.
Sorry. It's regarding the plant balances by the USOA account number at May 31, 2025 to reconcile with the stipulated total plant and service at that date.
Okay, Your Honor, I believe we can.
Okay.
Shelley, correct, Ms. Antrainer, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe we can.
I believe that information was supplied in response to a data request for the true-up, but we can look up that number and give you the specific data request response, if that answers the question.
We can agree to it. Yeah.
Yep, in the next rate case.
Yes.
Okay. And I just mentioned, that was all the questions that I had. I mentioned kind of tangentially that the exhibits were asked to be entered, and I will formalize that. in an order approving the stipulation when that gets issued through the commission. Is there anything else from council or the bench?
Your Honor, this
Yes.
is John Kaufman. Yes, for Consumers Council, and just a couple comments I wanted to get into the record for clarity. First of all, on your question about the percentage, I appreciate that. It's often very hard for me to sometimes understand the percentages that are going on, but I wanted to make sure that if the commission or if you are referring to a percentage, that you make sure that you identify what it is that is going into the percentage. And there's often a mismatch between the increase to the base rates, which is the subject of this case, and what the overall impact might be on the average estimated bill of a customer. And I think that 7% is looking at the overall bill, which includes the purchase gas adjustment. So I just want to make sure if you're using a percentage that you identify whether it's increasing the base rate by this percentage or increasing what the average bill might be when taking everything into account, including the PGA. And the other thing I wanted to note is that it is confusing to look at the overall picture of customer assistance programs might be here. And one of the reasons is that some of the commitments are in other cases. And I wanted to also note that some of the commitments, including commitments from Spire to fund part of these programs through shareholder funds, is included in the previous ACA case, which involved a discussion of the STL pipeline. And that's case number GR 2021-0127. And so that's with that in conjunction with this case, I think you can see the whole picture as it relates to programs for Spire. And that's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kaufman. Any other comments from council?
Just from Spire, Your Honor, thank you for your time this morning, you and the commissioners. Thank you.
Thank you. And from the commission?
Just to close us out this morning, appreciate the parties coming down to do an on the record. I know it's kind of that extra step, but I think it does help give the commission clarity on questions. I know Commissioners Kolkmeyer and Mitchell mentioned it. It's clear just from sitting in this on the record that the parties all gave and worked well together. So that makes the commission's job a lot easier. Really appreciate that work. I know sometimes it's difficult work, so thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Chair. And I also want to thank the parties for coming today. This presentation is adjourned and we can go off the record. Have a good day, everyone.